Hey Simon, we saw your video and completely agree that YouTube has given the everyday people a way to broadcast their voice to anyone who's willing to listen.
We know you weren't sure what kinds of impacts this would have.
Even though there are many potential impacts, we think the most important is the ability for the everyday person to unify people and start a movement.
This new empowerment is why we started our organization, the It Gets Around Project.
Now, you may be wondering what our organization's purpose is. Now, don't worry, we don't encourage promiscuity or anything like that.
Instead, the It Gets Around project is dedicated to educating people about the power of getting their ideas around in order to unify people under a cause.
We believe that with new social media networks, such as YouTube, people's thoughts and ideas can get around the world faster and easier than ever before, and this allows for huge movements to start throughout the world.
The best example of this is the It Gets Better project, which we're not related to at all, but it shows us how one person can make a huge difference through YouTube.
The It Gets Better project was started on YouTube by Dan Savage, journalist and columnist, and his husband Terry Miller on September 21st of 2010.
In response to the suicide of 15-year-old Billy Lucas, who was ridiculed by his classmates for his sexuality, the project was started and was a way to tell LGBT youths that their lives will get better after their teenage years.
Let's think about the role of YouTube in all of this.
First, consider Dan Savage, author and columnist. Before YouTube, he probably had more influence than the average person, but nowhere near the influence of his project, which reached 40 million people.
To see this, let's consider his most popular book, The Commitment, which was written about his marriage. This book hit the New York Times bestselling list and sold roughly 300,000 copies.
Even if one of his books or columns was 100 times more well-known, this popularity will not compare to that of his project's videos. His book certainly would not have been recognized by influential people such as Ellen DeGeneres, Justin Bieber, Hillary Clinton, and President Obama, all of whom have contributed videos to the project.
The beautiful thing about the It Gets Around project is that it could have been started by anyone. Remember, it began as just one video posted to YouTube to console struggling LGBT youth. However, it became a mass movement just because Dan Savage encouraged others to do the same.
Because video is more expressive than other forms of media, YouTube was the best way for Dan to get his message out there. Although Dan Savage did have some influence, anyone, whether they're a high school dropout or a president, has the power to do exactly what he did.
The real growth of the project came from other YouTubers who were likely average people. In the first week, these people uploaded over 200 videos, and the following week they hit the 650 video limit on the project's YouTube page. Because so many everyday people gathered to support this movement, a community was formed, and the collective action of each person allowed for the empowerment of everyone in the project.
If even a few viewers become more active in combating homophobia, then these videos have made a small impact. So if you think about it, with 40 million viewers, that's a lot of small impacts, which ultimately adds up to one big one.
The It Gets Better project shows how the everyday person is empowered by YouTube. There are 2 points to take away from this.
The first is that Dan Savage's example shows us how YouTube can allow the everyday person to increase his or her influence, ultimately allowing him to motivate thousands, and possibly even millions, of people to join his movement.
The second point is that when people gather in a movement, they form a community. When more people join, that community's voice becomes louder, and together, this community really has the power to make a change in society.
The It Gets Better project is proof that anyone out there can start a movement with a video camera and a message to share.
So if you think you don't have very much influence, remember this.
It gets around.
It gets around.
It gets around.
It gets around.
It gets around!
It gets around.
It gets around!
Through tools like YouTube, your ideas really can get around.